What's going on, guys? Fred here, and man, it's been a while since I discussed this topic. I talked about this way back in like March 2015 about Heavy Iron being interested in bringing Battle for Bikini Bottom back to current gen platforms, or making a sequel, something along the lines of that. Now, the reason why I haven't spoken on this topic in such a long time is because there hasn't been any big news going on or anything like that. However, for the past year or so, I've been gathering information on this topic, and there are a few things that happened this year. I have some things to talk about Activision possibly no longer having a deal with Nickelodeon regarding SpongeBob licensed games, THQ sort of returning, along with some official word from Heavy Iron themselves regarding Battle for Bikini Bottom. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is THQ. Now, as you know, THQ has went bankrupt a few years back. However, a company formerly known as Nordic Games have purchased a lot of THQ's old IPs back in 2013. You know, games like the Straw Humans, Legend of K, and the MX vs. ATV series are owned by them now. And just recently they have changed their name to THQNordic. No, this does not mean the old people from THQ work there or anything like that. This is a completely different people. But Nordic are just big fans of THQ, and they're officially trying to bring a lot of THQ's old games back. Now, I noticed some SpongeBob fans talk about this and think this could potentially mean that we'll get a new SpongeBob game published by THQNordic and made by Heavy Iron, or maybe just people who don't know much about the topic and might think, oh, the original THQ's back. No, it's not the original THQ. And I would say that it's certainly possible for them to publish a SpongeBob game, but I wouldn't jump to conclusions just yet. You know, it's too early right now. That would be up to Nickelodeon after all. Also, I see a couple of people saying they would like to see Nicktoons games make a comeback. Even though I'm a Nicktoons fan personally, I think it's a bad idea, because a lot of the old Nicktoons aren't on Nickelodeon anymore, and seeing a game with only a few modern characters that they show on Nickelodeon now would be terrible, even if Loud House is a decent show. So the whole THQNordic thing is interesting because they have 23 games in development. I'm excited for this because of the suspense of what games these could possibly be, but I wouldn't exactly jump to conclusions that SpongeBob is coming back, at least not from them. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is Heavy Iron Studios and the whole Battle for Bikini Bottom HD remake or sequel thing. Heavy Iron have confirmed that at this moment in time they are not working on any SpongeBob related video games, but they still have old members there that worked on Battle for Bikini Bottom in a movie game that would love to make another SpongeBob game or bring the old games back. You know, these guys actually watch the show, so of course. So what I want you guys to hear is a recording from a podcast that Matthew Seymour was in. No, I'm not in it or anything like that, but it's sort of an interview, and I've heard it multiple times. This guy asks questions about Disney Infinity, Heavy Iron's puzzle game Fat City, you guys probably don't know about that, but I have it, and stuff like that. I listened to the whole thing, but there is one part of the podcast where this guy talks to him about SpongeBob, about licensed games, you know, about Battle for Bikini Bottom returning and stuff like that. I'll have the podcast linked in the description. For those of you that haven't been following me for a long time, Matthew Seymour is the current vice president of Heavy Iron. Really awesome and cool dude. Back in 2013 when I asked Heavy Iron if they could make a Sponge Out of Water game, Matthew was the one that responded to my email and had everyone that was still left on the Battle for Bikini Bottom team watch the video on my channel. And they loved the idea and were totally up for it. But unfortunately, Activision were working with Behavior Interactive to make SpongeBob HeroPants, which was a big middle finger to me along with the rest of the fans. I'm sorry, we did what we could. Anyway, what Matthew said in this podcast is actually pretty interesting. It's not all positive and exactly what you want to hear, so don't get too excited now, but I want you guys to listen to this.
So, I see some other 360 titles you've worked on, like Family Guy, SpongeBob titles, stuff like that.
Yes.
Where do those titles fall in terms of backward compatibility? Are we going to see those hit the service? Anything that you're in control of?
Yeah, great question. So that's Heavy Iron particularly. I do have a credit on Family Guy. I've been working with Heavy Iron just over 4 years. So many of the games that I was mentioning earlier, sans the Disney Infinity stuff, I wasn't involved in, but Heavy Iron was. But to answer your question specifically, yes, they're not in our control. Is kind of the horrible straight answer to you. We made those for THQ, which we know is now dead and buried, and then they were licensed games. So, any sort of remastering or bringing those back legitimately, that would ultimately fall in the hands of the licensors at this point. Yeah. Now that THQ is no longer with us. So yeah, it's kind of a shame. I will say that there are a number of SpongeBob petitions out there for Heavy Iron to make more SpongeBob games, or to remaster, particularly SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom. In particular, was sort of the masterpiece of the SpongeBob series, as far as the consumers go, in particular. And we would love to have that opportunity. So if there's anybody at Nintendo that's listening in, give us a call. We'll be happy. We'll be happy to make that happen. And we still have a lot of the people that worked on that game are still working with us, and they would be super excited to be a part of that.
I'll just throw this out there. If anyone in Nintendo is listening, give us a call too, because we would love to work with you guys.
There you go. Yeah. I didn't mean Nintendo. I meant Nickelodeon. My apologies. Nickelodeon. But
hey, Nintendo, Nickelodeon, we'll take calls from anyone.
Anybody with the ends. Nickelodeon.
Nabisco, give us a call. We could use cookies.
Exactly.
We'll let the Keebler Elves throw some sponsorship on this bitch.
There you go. Definitely with Nickelodeon, they did make another game, a mobile game recently for the latest SpongeBob movie. But I tell you, I mean, there are change.org petitions out there for us to remaster the SpongeBob games, and like that's, but yeah, and it's really, I mean, it really puts a smile on our face when we get those emails or the post on our Facebook page, and God darn it, I really wish we could do something, but it's up to Nickelodeon. So again, talk to them.
I will do my best to get in touch with Nickelodeon and make this happen.
Thank you.
Can't promise anything.
No.
Okay, so that was it. The rest of the podcast had to do with other stuff. And yeah, as you heard, Heavy Iron are not in control. But it's still possible. Now on to the next thing I want to talk to you guys about. There is a possibility that Activision have lost any future access to the SpongeBob license. Now, I want to make this clear. This is not confirmed. I just have evidence that might suggest that. Those of you that follow me on Twitter saw me post about this back in like April. So basically, Plankton's Robotic Revenge and HeroPants have been removed from the PlayStation Network, Xbox Live, and Nintendo eShop. All digital versions of those two Activision games can no longer be purchased. If you already purchased it, it's still possible to re-download it, obviously, but you cannot buy them digitally anymore. They were removed in April 2016. Now, it's still possible to find used copies of these two games at your local GameStop or leftover new copies, but these two games are basically a thing of the past at this point, and I'm glad. Usually when something like this happens with licensed games, the publisher have lost the publishing right to the game. Just like how I have the PS3 port of the SpongeBob SquarePants movie game from 2012 or so on my PSN. And around the time THQ went bankrupt, this game along with a PS3 port of TAC2 The Staff of Dreams were removed from the PlayStation Store. At one point you could still get download codes from them off GameStop.com, but you can't anymore. And don't ask me to game share to you, okay? And keep in mind guys, Activision losing the license could also mean that the SpongeBob video game license is gone altogether. Or just for now, considering there is a new SpongeBob movie coming in 2019. It's also possible that Plankton's Robotic Revenge and HeroPants was so bad that we will never see a new SpongeBob game again. We don't know what could be happening. Chances are, HeroPants and Robotic Revenge are so embarrassingly bad, yeah, that goes for anyone who tries to defend them, that the license was dropped. Or maybe the contract was expired and not renewed. We're not sure, but from what I can get out of all of this, the SpongeBob license is gone. Activision no longer has it, and that also means that a new company could come in and get it. Heavy Iron are an independent developer. They're able to publish and develop games. While I know Activision having the license doesn't mean, when they did have the license, it doesn't mean that nobody else can have it, because SpongeBob mobile games still happen and they have nothing to do with Activision. But yeah, either way, it's possible for Heavy Iron to get the license if Nickelodeon lets them. My question is, will Nickelodeon let Heavy Iron make SpongeBob games again?
Don't ask questions you aren't prepared to handle the answer to.
Well, maybe they will. Maybe they won't, because modern Nickelodeon are fucking assholes. The only way to find out is to ask. It's possible for Heavy Iron to make a game based off the 20th anniversary movie in 2019, but since it's only 2016 at the moment, it's much too early to tell. So the status of Heavy Iron bringing Battle for Bikini Bottom back or continuing it is a big mystery. We don't know if this idea can go anywhere or not. Anywho, the last thing I want to talk about is that the petitions on my previous video on this topic for the most part are closed. I don't exactly know what this means, but I think instead of making petitions, we should all hit up Nickelodeon via email asking them to allow Heavy Iron to make SpongeBob games. And if they see enough people contacting them, maybe they'll listen. I'm not sure, guys. All I can do is report what I know. That's my job, and right now what I said in this video is all I know. I know it's not much, but it's why I held back from making a video on this topic for so long. Considering Battle for Bikini Bottom has almost 2.4 million likes on Facebook as of this video, and there are tons of Let's Plays of this game on YouTube with plenty of views. It's safe to say that the game has a popular hidden fan base, though I'm not exactly sure what it takes to get the word out to all of them. I know that us as fans have more control over this whole thing than Heavy Iron does, whether it's Battle for Bikini Bottom getting an HD remaster, it coming to PS2 on PS4, Truth or Square coming to Xbox One backwards compatibility, or it may be even Attack Trilogy getting an HD remaster or port on PS2 on PS4, even with Avalanche software gone. But either way, it's all up to Nickelodeon. As Senpai Matthew Seymour said in the podcast. Anyways, all the 90s kids gathered together to make the splat happen so we can see old Nickelodeon cartoons on TV, so the same could happen to the games maybe. If these new people at Nick see enough people contacting them about Nickelodeon video games, maybe they'll see it profitable and we'll get just that. Well, either way, that's all I had to talk to you guys about today, and I hope... fucking Facebook. And I hope you all have a wonderful day.